What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and we continue to get closer and closer to training camp. And one of the things I've been continuing to talk about is how I think contract extensions for both Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson could be on the horizon pretty soon, as we need to kind of keep these cornerstone pillars, who were obviously the offensive and defensive rookie of the year, in their rookie season and really help build the identity of the green and white and become leaders in this new regime with Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji. But a lot of questions still kind of remain, not only on their training, we know about them, but what is behind them at very key positions. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today, but I do want to talk more about Sauce Gardner, okay? Because he was on the Pat McAfee show last week and he had a lot to say, and we've talked about it, right? Everything from his training and development to his contract to how he's been challenged by some of the new coaches like Steve Wilkes and Aaron Glenn, how he fits in their scheme. But I do want to also mention, I thought this was interesting about his training this year for 2025, that maybe will help him achieve some of his goals. Listen to what he had to say. He said, "This offseason has been by far my best. I just left training with my trainer and I feel great. I'm sitting at about 200 pounds right now. I don't think I've ever played that heavy, but the more weight I put on and muscle, the more explosive I get and the faster I become." Now, you know about Sauce's cover grades. You know he's the number one corner as rated by PFF. I've been telling you guys about the league high incompletions he's forced, the league low kind of yards per coverage snap. But here's what I think is interesting about that. Him being a little bit heavier at 200 pounds, because if you remember, one of the things that both Wilkes and Glenn have said about Sauce Gardner is this idea that they want him to maybe tackle a little bit better, right? And this would track with that. Him being at 200 pounds, maybe he is taking on the challenge to be a little bit bigger. Talk about him maybe being more explosive, that kind of thing. I don't worry about that. He's one of the best man cover guys in the league, and a lot of that is predicated on his height, if you remember, right? That tall, lanky archetype that it looks like Aaron Glenn is looking for. But maybe if he does put on a little bit of more muscle, he will be able to really support in the run game and tackle a little bit better. I did take that from his comments, so it's interesting to see that Sauce is getting a little bit heavier and maybe taking on the challenge from the coaches. Now, we know Sauce is on one side, right? The guy who will likely be on the other side, at least to start the season, because I do think Azaria Thomas is a good draft pick in the third round and could be coming on, but it will likely be the free agent signing from the Baltimore Ravens, and that is Brandon Stephens, right? Brandon Stephens, with some versatility, has played some safety, but I do think he's going to be the corner. Again, another tall, lanky, press man cover guy, and he talked about his goals for the 2025 season. And once again, it is aligned and it tracks with a lot of other stuff we have been hearing from players and coaches here on Jets Latest. Listen to what Brandon Stephens had to say. He goes, "Just being able to change the game, not trying to force your way into changing games, but just being in the right spot at the right time. We speak in the DB room about turning the ball over and getting hands on the ball. I think that's been a main focus for me." Remember, Aaron Glenn kind of personally challenges everybody, and that's in line with what he told Brandon Stephens. Aaron Glenn said he can deny the ball really well, but he has to work on creating turnovers. And again, look at this fit now. Brandon Stephens at 6'1", Sauce Gardner at 6'3", even a guy like Azaria Thomas, who he drafted in the third round. He is 6'2", also tall, lanky, able to play that man coverage. These Jets will likely have the tallest cornerback duo or trio in the league, not counting Michael Carter, of course, who plays nickel, who plays a little bit in the slot. And we talked about also how turnovers, interceptions specifically, is something the Jets are going to focus on. We've talked about this when we've mentioned guys like Cisco as a ball hawking safety, because this is definitely an area the Jets can improve on. Check it out. Last year, only the Jaguars, Giants, and Browns had fewer interceptions than the Jets. The Jets only had 7 picks last year. However, Steve Wilks, the new defensive coordinator, has been the head or coordinated a lot of defenses in the past that have actually led the league in interceptions. With the Niners in 2023, 22 picks led the league. In 2015, with the Panthers, 24 picks that led the league. So again, this is all kind of consistent. He's telling his guys they want to turn the ball over a little bit more. They're focusing on guys who can play that press man coverage or be ball hawking safeties. And it seems like the scheme is going to be to blitz and to play man coverage behind it. And then for a guy like Sauce, who is an all-pro for goodness sakes, still finding ways to challenge him, whether it be in the tackling game or whether it be with that consistency. So that is one side of the ball, and how we are going to kind of step up behind Sauce Gardner to create turnovers and a really top tier secondary, right? On the other side of the ball, I talk about maybe Garrett Wilson getting an extension, but the question still remains. A lot of people are wondering what the rest of that wide receiver room is going to look like. I see comments on social media here on Jets Latest all the time. Idea like, oh, we still got to go get Keenan Allen. Oh, we still got to go get Amari Cooper. There was another report about Amari Cooper that I read a couple of days ago. Listen, I don't think they're going to get Amari Cooper. I think the Jets' brain trust, first of all, sees this as a run team with Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Justin Fields. We've talked about that. Sees the potential of guys that are not wide receivers like Breece Hall out of the backfield, like Mason Taylor, our second round draft pick, and kind of understand the roles of everybody on this team behind Garrett Wilson. And one of the guys that I think is sometimes forgotten about, because we talk about Josh Reynolds a lot, we talk about Lazard, we talk about the young guys who can step up like Malachi Corley and Arian Smith. We forget about a guy we signed that's Tyler Johnson. And I think he also is part of this group and has the ability to step up. Listen to what he had to say recently. He goes, it's been amazing so far. Being able to come out here with these guys day in, day out and work with one another. We're able to go out there and make plays and get 1% better every day. Now, on some level, they're going to need to get 1% better, right? I mean, Tyler Johnson only had 26 catches, 291 yards, and 1 touchdown last year with the Rams, but he fits that profile. He's only 26 years old. He has flash, but they're going to need someone. Outside of Garrett Wilson, nobody had more than the 37 catches at the NFL level, at least. You know, Arian Smith did more than that in college, right? Then Alan Lazard. You know, I mean, Devontae Adams is gone. Breece Hall had 57 catches. Again, out of the backfield. Tyler Conklin had over 50 catches. Hopefully Mason Taylor takes some of that, right? But these wide receivers are going to have to step up, and that's why I, here on Jets Latest, have been talking about the different roles they are going to play. None of these guys is going to be a big-time number 2 wide receiver like a T. Higgins or a Devontae Smith or Jordan Addison or even a Jalen Waddle in Miami, right? It's not going to be that way. It's going to be Garrett Wilson as your beast on the outside, utilizing Breece Hall, utilizing Mason Taylor, and then these guys have other roles and strengths. Like Josh Reynolds is a hands guy, right? Arian Smith is a take the top off the defense kind of speed guy. Malachi Corley, that yak king. I think Tyler Johnson, though, besides, say, Reynolds, besides, say, Lazard, is one of the better all-around wide receivers that they do have. And an experienced wide receiver, I've talked about it before, played with the Bucks with Tom Brady. Brady liked Tyler Johnson. Played with the Rams and Matthew Stafford. Stafford liked throwing the ball to Tyler Johnson. So I think he is a well-rounded receiver that can fit, and I really do believe these Jets are going to have different personnel groups with different wideouts depending what they kind of need to complement Garrett Wilson, Mason Taylor, and of course that run game. And speaking of that wide receiver room, here's what I believe it's going to be. It's going to be Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds, Lazard, Tyler Johnson, Arian Smith, Malachi Corley makes 6, and then Xavier Gibson as well to kind of round out that room. And it may not sound sexy, but I'm telling you, at the end of the season, you're going to be like, yo, and Josh Reynolds really did good. Or, wow, you know, Arian Smith came out of nowhere. You know, or it's good to see that Malachi Corley took that step, or Tyler Johnson. And I think that is going to be okay as Tanner Engstrand and the Jets offense puts it together. But remember, they're going to be a running team anyway, and that is the thing you really have to acknowledge. So it's not like these heavy running teams have huge number 2 wideouts, okay? Like the Baltimore Ravens, like their number 2 wideout is Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman would move the needle just as much as names like Josh Reynolds or Alan Lazard in this conversation, okay? So I think everybody needs to calm down, and I know people are clamoring for the big names like an Amari Cooper, but it is just not going to happen. One other thing I like to do here now on Jets Latest is integrate some of your comments on the relative topics. I've been really excited and proud of the development of this channel. We're up over 1,800 subscribers. Thank you. We're not even at training camp yet. A lot of people are liking the videos, giving positive comments. I appreciate that. Continue to put your comments in there. I like engaging, and I will take some of them and I will read them on the show. Like, for example, Scott Mayhem says about Sauce. Sauce is a top-notch cornerback. To be elite, he just needs to keep working on catching the INTs and tackling better. That's exactly what we're talking about, right? He put on weight to maybe be a better tackler and catching the ball, making those turnovers. Remember, the Jets were bottom in the league in terms of interceptions. So I'm with you, Scott. Let's see if that's what happened as a point of emphasis with Wilkes and, of course, Aaron Glenn. Marcus Barossi, 5417. And listen, I love the trolls. Keep them coming, guys. He goes, Sauce is garbage. Okay, man. I don't know if Sauce is garbage. He's actually the #1 rated cornerback in the NFL as per PFF, and so many stats support it, but there's always going to be haters out there, right? So I thought that was funny. And then Jay Perez, 8636, says, this was a great show. The topics and comments are fresh. Keep it up. Thank you to that and all these comments, and I will keep it up, okay? Jets Latest, especially as we're getting into training camp and only a week or two away, we will be here pretty much every day, giving you what we see at training camp and into the season, giving you news, notes, quotes, analysis, and all sorts of stuff to keep you plugged in to the green and white. So I appreciate everybody. Watch these videos, like these videos, subscribe to the channel, and tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend. And if you want to hear more from me, the spitting statistician Dane Martinez, I am the host of the FTN Fantasy Show over on SiriusXM, channel 87, because you may start to be thinking about your fantasy football team as well. I host a show over there highlighting FTN's tools, data, content, all sorts of great stuff to make you a better fantasy player and a better sports bettor. And speaking of sports betting, I am also on Sports Grid TV, hosting a show called In Game Live, where we go around the sports landscape, all the games that are happening on a given night, finding those live betting opportunities. And there's really a couple of tricks of the trade there if you want to be a better live bettor. But for now, that'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. Thank you for the comments. Hit me up. I will continue to read some of these on the show, and hopefully these guys can step up behind Sauce and Garrett Wilson, who hopefully are getting their extensions sometime soon. We'll see you tomorrow, but for now, we're out of here. Peace.